Peace, what's going down? It's DJ Payne 1 for Beatstars.com, and today we have a special guest and the rare privilege of speaking to a platinum producer who's doing big things in the industry, but who's also very active and one of the many top-selling producers on the Beatstars platform. His name is Dreamlife. We're live from some foreign remote location. What's going down, sir?
Hey, Payne. What's good? Good to see you, man. I'm happy to do this interview, bro.
It's been a while, man. We caught up with each other at the A3C Beatstars workshops that we did. And actually, we spent a lot of time together, had a lot of conversations. And one of the conversations was, I think, looking around at the table at all these other guys that are really killing it on the internet. We started to notice how young they are. And so I hate this question because it kind of dates us, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So how long have you been making beats?
I mean, I definitely consider myself a little bit of an old head. Started beats and music in general when I was a kid in school. I always did music, played a little bit of the keys, tried to play the drum, and it kind of just evolved from there. I remember, I think maybe when I was 15 or 16, I got the MPC 1000 stack of records, stack of my dad's records, and literally just started flipping any sample that I thought sounded dope. Didn't really play the beats to anyone and just kind of did it as a hobby, just something, you know, that I was always naturally drawn to. It just evolved from there. Later on, I went to college and studied audio engineering. I got a bit more familiar with the recording aspects of music and naturally evolved into making beats, always massively into hip-hop, so that's kind of where it went.
So just to put things into perspective for aspiring producers who feel kind of frustrated with their perceived lack of progress, how long did it take for you after you started making beats to actually get your first major placement?
Yeah, about 12 years, you know, and that was 12 years of just sort of making beats and being in the lab and working on my craft. When I did start in the UK, I did work with a few sort of well-known rappers in London, but it wasn't really paid work. You know, they weren't selling a lot of records around that time for that type of the type of hip hop I was doing. But at the time, I would have called it a placement if you asked me. So I always sort of had confidence in my own ability, but to get a big placement, it took a long time. This
is important to note, just because it's so new, and especially for people like us who have been doing this for a long time, you know, before the internet era. Prior to getting your first major placement, which I believe was Kevin Gates, correct?
Correct.
Prior to doing that, you were still making a living off of beats, but you were doing it all through the internet.
Yeah, so I started selling beats online around 4 years ago. It's about 4.5 years ago. Started a YouTube page, a profile on a couple of the beat selling marketplaces, and I was really just doing it part-time. I'd sort of sell a beat here and there, but I wasn't taking it too seriously until I started to upload more and more beats and the sales started to get a bit more regular. And then after that, I started to look into the marketing. And actually around the time that I started selling beats online, I was still working a 9 to 5 sales job. So in my free time, you know, I'd literally just be making beats, trying to upload beats. But I really didn't have any time to study marketing and study what other beat makers were making. So yeah, I wasn't making a ton of sales. I was just sort of making sure that my catalog got up there. And to be honest, I was just doing it more for fun than anything else, just as sort of a hobby, and it developed into something else and kind of took on a life of its own.
So here's a follow-up question to that. There are a lot of producers now who are also getting frustrated about their internet sales, and say a producer has just started, say they just signed up for the BeatStars platform, for example. They haven't gotten a sale yet. They're starting to get a little discouraged. What advice would you give them as far as building their infrastructure to the point where they're actually getting sales and getting plays and interest in their production?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. You know, I think all the top sellers now have been in that position. I certainly was there. So, you know, I can only really say what worked for me, and sort of what I concentrated on was really just creating my own lane and just making sure that I had a sound that was true to me, that I feel that I'm good at, and just really work hard on it. I think it's important to work on your strengths and get better at your strengths and trying to strengthen up your weaknesses. You know, so in other words, find a particular style that you're really good at and just work on it day in, day out. And what you'll start to do is generate your own sound, and you'll start generating a demand for people that are looking for that particular sound. The internet's a massive place, and there's people out there that are really looking for every type of beat. So you just have to find the people that are interested in the particular beats that you make, the style that you make, a market to them. It's not a short-term plan. It's definitely a long-term plan. But if you keep putting good content out in your lane, eventually people will start to find you and they'll buy beats off you based on the fact that you have your own sound. So that's the first sort of and main point that I'd make for someone that's struggling at the moment. Secondly, I see a lot of producers that complain about beat sales, but then they've only got like 15 beats in their catalog, 20 beats. And realistically, a lot of the top sellers, I mean, a lot of these guys, and we have sort of over 200 beats in our catalog, 150 beats. So I'd say you need at least 50 beats to make it worth someone coming to your page and spending time and investing their time to get to know your product. So I definitely take some time out before you start thinking about beat sales to make sure that you have the product in place. And then third, and this is something that's always been a sort of a big one for me, is like, you got to realize that everything is not for everyone. So don't focus on the people that don't like your music. Focus on the people that do like your music. You know, not everyone's going to like your beat. You're going to get a lot of criticism. When you put art out there in general into the world, you're asking for criticism. And that's just part of the game. But you got to realize that there will be people that like your music as well. So focus on the positive rather than the negative, and don't sit on beats. Don't have 100 beats, 200 beats on your hard drive, because if they don't come out, it's like you never made them, you know. So put your music out there, let the world judge, and just make sure you got enough content out there. That would be my main three sort of pieces of advice for starting out.